Hey everybody. So, as usual, I'm slightly delayed when it involves coordinating multiple people, because why wouldn't I be? But the wall of clocks is John Coyle's room, and there he is. Hey John, while you were away, I put us live on my stream, and I'm going to go find Devin real quick.
All right, perfect.
I was just telling everyone about your wall of clocks. You had like 24 of them or something, but you've lost count?
I don't even know, to be honest. Gosh, I'm not sure. I used to have as many bicycles, but I've been selling them.
Interesting. All right, let me see if I can find our other guest real quick, and then we'll get going.
I would like start work for like 5 minutes, but
There
I'd
he
go
is.
clean something.
I gotta mute him. So Devin is legendary for he's in the middle of talking to others. We'll have to get his attention here. But he's got let's see, 800 people watching him. So we'll bring along some fun crowd here in a second. Have you ever used Twitch? Are you at all familiar with Twitch, John? Totally new to you? Have no idea what it is. You've just, on Awesome's word, you've blindly agreed to come to this website.
Exactly.
It turns out it's mostly pornography. No, wait.
Oh, okay.
Not true. I'll get in big trouble. This is where I should say I don't speak for Amazon or Twitch here, but I'm also just kidding. Oh, and the Twitch staff is here to immediately tell me that I'm off topic. So, John, meet Devin. Devin, meet John.
Hey, Devin.
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Cheers.
Dude, I literally started my stream an hour early so I wouldn't be late for this, and I fucking was anyway. It's ridiculous.
That's okay, man. You made it. Now I have to adjust my displays here a second to get everybody on screen.
Same, yeah.
But that's okay.
It'll take a moment. Dude, John, it's an honor to meet you, man.
Hey, pleasure to meet you as well.
Yeah, I've heard of your legend.
Yeah. So, well, let's do this right. Devin, are you ready for me to roll a little bit of preamble on your side? Do you have us on screen or working on?
I don't know what any of that means, but yeah, you do it, man.
I'm being polysyllabic.
I don't know what that means either.
Devin brings every man to our discussions. That's why I like to have him. He keeps us on so that we don't get too erudite and abstract.
It's a nice way of saying that I'm an idiot, but I'm happy to be here. I promise I'll try to provide value.
He does.
Yeah.
So, real quickly, we have here tonight John Coyle. I met John through a community member, Awesome Patel, who's in Devin's community as well as mine. He introduced us. I was fascinated to talk to John for two reasons. First, as many of you know, I'm simply an aging amateur hockey player, but John is a speed skating medalist. And so I thought, just being associated with that kind of speed would make my hockey better all by itself. Second, though, he's pivoted or extended from his 12 years you were involved in the speed skating program for the Olympics for 12 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 12 years, which is amazing. Super long run. But then he's got these other specialties. He pivoted to a successful consulting career, and from that to a successful public speaking career, which is what he does today. We'll post his website in chat. You can always find it by using !guest in my channel. It's johnkcoyle.com. He's written a book, which we'll show here in a minute. And the thing I'm most interested, I reached out to talk to John, not only to learn about his public speaking, but also he'll probably say a little bit about the wall of clocks behind him. But I really want to talk to him about what he learned about focusing on your strengths versus weaknesses. And so what I asked him to join us all for, because I know it happens on Devin's community as well as my own, a lot of people ask us, they get feedback on a weakness, and they end up being asked, should they fix that weakness or ignore it or what? I think John really has some super deep thoughts on that. We'll ask him to tell his story. So with that real quick, I think most of you watching know Devin, but Devin, for John's benefit, would you like to introduce yourself?
I really want to know about this disconcerting number of clocks, but yes, I will, Ethan, because I will. Okay. Yes. Hi, I'm Devin. I am a part-time Twitch TV and YouTube entertainer. My full-time work is I run one of the I think we're number 2 talent agency in the Twitch and YouTube space, and out of Seattle here. We do 2 things: creative solutions for brands, and we also take care of a lot of Twitch and YouTube influencers. My former life, I was an esports CEO. I ran a team called Counterlogic Gaming, which at the time was a lot of number 2s here. First loser, I'm noticing, but was the number 2 NA team in North America. We sold that to Madison Square Garden, and then I went and did this. So that's me. Now I yell at people in my Twitch chat on my off time when I'm not working for my agency.
So Devin tends to undersell himself, though. I think CLG, it's public, right? What CLG was sold for, like that's not a secret, right? The purchase price.
It is public. You don't need to say the number, Ethan. Okay, I'm trying to get some subscriptions here on my Twitch channel. All right?
You didn't get any of it. No, Devin got none of it because he's a poor negotiator. Right. But the bankers made out,
yes,
and everybody supports
those investment bankers.
So. Well, John, you've kind of heard what we'd love to hear about. We'd love to hear some about, if you don't mind. First, feel free to introduce yourself anyway I messed up or you'd like to add. We'd love to hear some about strengths and weaknesses. And then, of course, Devin, I've already talked to you and seen your wonderful TED Talk on how to get the most value out of time and how to slow time down. But I'm sure Devin has not and would love to hear about your wall of clocks.
That sounds awesome. Are you using all of those clocks simultaneously to energetically slow down the universe?
Yes, that's the plan.
Whoa! We did it. That's awesome. You're a Time Lord. You're Doctor Strange.
Yes, that's actually true. So I'll address the first question first.
Okay.
Ethan. The reality is, well, I'll quote somebody. I can't attribute it, but the quote is, if you're over 25 and still trying to fix your weaknesses, that ship has sailed.
Okay.
And the inherent meaning there is that around 25, the prefrontal cortex, which is the latest blooming part of your brain, finishes developing. And that's intentional from an evolutionary standpoint. It allows you to overcome any genetic biases you might have inherited and build yourself to be the you that you want to be. But at some point, it's a set point. And so you have to decide, all right, today at 25 is the day that I'm going to be this person. Now, if this person that you decide to be is not the person that you are inside, it's not attuned to your strengths, it's not harmonious with your resonant frequencies, well, then you're going to have a miserable life. That's simply how it works. Like, if you think you're going to be an accountant, but you're wired to be a creative painter, well, you can do it, but you'll be miserable. And the gist of this whole talk and this book and everything else is that strengths and weaknesses tend to be facets of the same thing. So if you're creative, you're probably disorganized. If you're detail oriented, you're probably a perfectionist. If you're practical, you're probably critical. If you're direct and honest, you're probably blunt and rude. If you are a big picture strategist, you're probably bad with details. If you are calm, you're probably unemotional. I could keep going. Like, the price of your strengths is the weakness that you have to pay for. And so many people spend so much time trying to fix that thing. And it's the same in sports, by the way. So if you're a aerobic athlete, then you're probably terrible at sprinting. And if you're an anaerobic athlete like me, you're probably terrible at going up hills or doing anything aerobically. But, I didn't know that for the first 20 years of my life, and I kept trying to fix it. And you can't. That's the gist.
And I'd love for you, just because I know the story, tell a little bit, maybe the short version or the medium version of your Olympic journey in terms of learning. The coach is trying to make you aerobic and you learning you were anaerobic, and that sort of your discovery of your strengths and your unchangeable weaknesses. So I think
sure.
then we can talk about what people should do, but that'll be super powerful.
So, I grew up and I was a fast kid. Like I was fast and everybody thought I was fast until every once in a while, longer races with hills, I wasn't. And so, but I managed to make the U.S. speed skating team while living in California with no coach and no training program. And I got 12th in the world my senior year in the sport of speed skating. So then I joined the Olympic team after graduating, and I thought, okay, I got 2 years. I can go from 12th to 6th to 1st. And then the Olympic coaches took a look at my profile as an athlete, and they're like, oh, you got some weaknesses. We need to fix those. And so they had me double down on fixing my aerobic weaknesses. And so for 2 years, that's all I did. I did longer rides, more endurance, and they were good people with good intentions. And I went from 12th to 34th to not even making the team 2 years later, finishing 30th in the U.S. trials that I had won 2 years prior. And at this point, I was like, okay, this isn't working. I should probably quit. But I kept thinking back, I used to be good at this. Like, something's wrong here. Like, maybe I need to design for my strengths. And so I quit the team, not the sport, and I started training on my own. And I started designing my training for what I do well, which is short, intensive intervals. And so I practiced that every day for a year with no coach, no training program, all on my own. And I showed up 1 year to the day of the meet that I got 30th in, U.S. trials. And on the first race back in a sport where 100ths determined first from second, in my very first race, I broke the U.S. record by 5.5 seconds and the world record by over a second. Because I doubled down on what I do well.
Right. That's
and
amazing.
For everybody.
So you broke the world record for what? Short track speed skating.
Speed skating for the 1,000 meters at the
1,000 meter speed skating. So 1 kilometer by over a second. And how long is the whole race? Like what part of the second of like a minute?
That I set at the time was 1:28:47. So the previous record was 1:29:65. Not that I recall.
Not that that's burned into your brain and will be written on your memorial. No. So more than 1% improvement on the world record. That's what that backs into. Sorry, math head here.
It's very significant.
Yeah. That's
but
amazing.
For everybody else, like if you are really good at figuring out complex problems, that's what you should be doing. If you're really good at dealing with people and creating connection, that's what you should be doing. If you're not, you probably shouldn't be.
Oh boy. Okay. So I have long thought this to be the case as well. In the sense that essentially what you're advocating is that we focus on our strengths, acknowledging that there's also like a duality of weakness there. Right. Although a lot of the newer research in neuroscience has found that neurogenesis proceeds well into adulthood, right? That like, sure. Right. So like we used to think of neuroplasticity as a thing that gets established like because the hippocampus and neocortex forms, you're 25 and you're all over. But these days we know, right, that actually proceeds well into adulthood. And even we've seen it in neurogenesis in people up to 85, right? Sure. So do you still think it's productive? Like, how do you address that? Or do you still think it's productive to focus on these things given that kind of changing reality in neuroscience?
Think of it like a big trench. Like the big trench is your natural talent.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say maybe your natural talent is math, right? But part of that might be dealing with people, and that might not be a direct strength. But if it's not a direct weakness, if you're not like a fumbling idiot that can't only look at the shoes, then yeah, you got neuroplasticity to say, all right, I could be a really great professional accountant or mathematician teaching kids. It might not be my core strength to deal with others. But yes, of course, you can always morph into things that will help. But my belief is that if you're not spending your energy on your core channel and only building up the adjacencies around it, then you're actually wasting your life. And you're gonna live what Thoreau would call a life of quiet desperation.
It's one of my favorite quotes.
Wow.
Yeah, well said.
You two are going to end up being. It's like when Devin and I met, we immediately clicked. So that I think is so. First, John, you don't necessarily. John, everybody can be kind. This is his first visit to Twitch. The average demographic on Twitch, a good percentage of it is actually under 25. So I am curious, for the folks who are under 25, what would you say? Like, did they have a chance to change who they are, or is the advice the same, but they're still in exploration mode? How does it work below 25?
I think they're in exploration mode, but you have to be open to it. So if I may, I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
So I'm at Stanford. I got in, thank God. But I'm barely scraping by, right? And I'm going to become a mechanical engineer because that's what I thought I wanted to be, what my parents wanted for me. And then I failed Math 202 my sophomore year, which was linear algebra. I failed it, and I tried really hard. And I thought that by failing that class, when I walked out after failing, that I would feel sad and like a failure. And actually what I felt was incredible, almost like this openness, like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. And so I had to change majors because that was part of the mechanical engineering core. And I found the closest adjacent major that didn't require advanced math. It was called product design. And I moved into that major. And that was when I found myself. Like life threw up a guardrail and I followed it. And suddenly I'm in product design, which is half art and half engineering. And I stumbled in having David Kelly, the founder of Design Thinking, as my counselor, and voila, this created the career that became the person I am, because I listened to the negative feedback from failing that course. I could have taken it again, and I might have passed it, maybe, I don't know. But every once in a while, when you get that really strong, visceral evidence that this is not what you're good at, you should listen.
So I'm sure you've addressed this, because the next logical course of thinking in this is, well, okay, if we know that we need to focus on our strength and where our energy sort of naturally takes us, how do we find that?
Well, that's the hard part, right?
Because that's actually what these people are struggling with on the platform, right? Particularly like within my community and all communities on Twitch, they're struggling with how do I lock down on something and know that that is something that I want to pursue?
I'll answer in two ways. First is, you got to do this. You got to go left and right and left and right. And you got to try new things. And you can't know if you're good at something in a day or a week, and usually not necessarily even a month if it's complex. But the hallmark of a natural talent is the flow state. And I suspect both of you are familiar with flow.
Chick set me high. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Chick set me high. And
he can pronounce it. I can't.
It's a neurological state. And the hallmark of flow, and this is the easy part, is when you're in flow, which means you're doing something you're naturally good at. Your brain decides to shut off all of your clocks. So there's 28 or 17, depending on who you talk to, but there's a whole bunch of things that give you a sense of time. But when you do what you do best, you'll have this experience where you say, oh, where did the time go? Oh, 3 hours just went by? Or you'll say, oh, time stopped. Or both, because that's the hallmark of flow, is you're not measuring it. So you can't really describe time when you're in flow. So if you're really good at spreadsheets, you're working, banging away in Excel, and suddenly you're like, oh my God, this is an amazing, oh my God, it's 5 o'clock. Or if you're prepping for a vacation, or if you're having a conversation with a best friend, or if you're having a connection with someone you love. I mean, flow can be anything. But whenever the hallmarks of time are shut off, and you say, where did the 3 hours go? Or time stopped, or both, that is the indicator that you are in the area of your strengths. And the more of those things you can do, and weave a thread through them in your life, the better off you are, and the more likely you are to be aiming your career, your trajectory, your life towards the things you do well.
What if that doesn't correlate with things that are productive? For example, I think a lot of people experience flow states in gaming, but it's not like really getting them anywhere. Yeah.
But that's where you look for the adjacency. So if you're really great at gaming, right? So what does that mean? So you've got quick synapses, or you're good at communicating if it's a multiplayer game. Are you good at communicating about problem solving? Are you good at seeing in 3 dimensions? Are you good at seeing spatial relationship dimensions? Like, what is the adjacency that's sitting underneath that? Because gaming is just it's a complex thing, right? But there's gamers that are good at one part and another part and another part, and knowing what you do best. And this is my cocktail question. So I give it to you, Ethan and Devin. I'll give you my favorite cocktail question, which is, what are you best at? And most people literally they pause because they don't know. And so if you don't know what your core, quite specific strength is, you can't live the life that you should be living. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. I know that answer, but I've like really thought about it and spent a lot of time on it. And I also didn't know it like 5 years ago.
I didn't until I was 45.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if hey, what is yours? And I'll share mine if you like.
Marketing. I'm insanely good at getting people to be influenced by things, either through third parties or directly.
Awesome. So mine is a little more even specific. I think, you can judge me, of course, but I think that I'm good at taking highly complex data, distilling it down to a metaphor, and then using stories to illuminate it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's great. I would say mine, I guess more generally, would have been problem solving, right? Engineer background, tearing things apart, really working them over, particularly over a long span of time. So I still want to pull on the thread a little bit, though. So you worked in the corporate world, and so I know that you're familiar with the fact that whether it's grades in school or the infamous performance review, people get a lot of feedback on where they can grow. We call them areas for improvement, opportunities. In the old school, we actually used to just call them weaknesses. What would you say a young professional, now we'll say 25 or over maybe, should do with that feedback? So when their boss or their manager says, whatever, you're not that good of a writer, you can improve your writing skills, or you lack focus, or it would be great if you were a better team player. What?
So yeah, we are wired, and this is wiring comes from a good place. When we're kids, we don't know what we're good or bad at, and kids will quit anything. So the machine we build is to never quit anything, and just keep working at it, and you'll eventually triumph. And that's great advice until it's not, right? Where Scott Adams from Gilbert puts it, persistence is awesome until it's stupid. There comes somewhere in the 20s where you can't just keep banging your head against the same wall. And so my advice would be, and this is something I did in my career as a leader, is I stopped making lists of weaknesses for people to fix. I still kept skill sets to develop, and those are two different things. Like, skills are things you need to learn that you can learn that's not an inherent weakness, like a new operating system or whatever. Giving feedback for most people is a skill. It's not a strength or weakness. There's probably 10% of the population that sucks at giving feedback and always will, because they're scared and they're introverted or whatever that is. But for 90%, it's a skill. And so you develop skills. But true weaknesses, which tend to be a facet of a strength, right? If you're creative, you're probably disorganized. You shouldn't probably be a program manager if you're a creative, right? This is nonsense, right? You should be developing ideas or innovating or working with a creative agency or what have you. So my advice would be that everybody's performance review should be 8 things they should double down on, or 5, what the number is, and 1 or 2 skill gaps. And the underlying that is awareness of the associated weaknesses. And by the way, the best way, the easiest way at least, to deal with a true weakness is to simply admit you have it. People are very tolerant of people that have weaknesses if they admit them. So I had a
100%.
coworker,
Yep.
right? I had a coworker who cornered me like my 3rd day, and he was like, "Hey, I want to tell you something. I'm kind of an asshole." And I was like, I was waiting for the punchline. I thought it was a joke, right? And he says, and he's totally straight faced. He's like, I just say whatever comes into my mouth, my head. It comes out of my mouth. I have no filter. I try to fix it. I can't. So I'm probably going to piss you off in meetings. I'm just letting you know in advance, and I'm sorry. And we loved this guy because we actually called him the salty truth teller of the team. We'd pull him into meetings because we're like, oh, we're all in love with this idea. We need somebody that's going to tell the truth. It's a huge strength.
It's an asset. Sure. Used the right way.
Right. Use the right way. Now, will that work? I had a woman in a talk raise her hand and go, well, I'm a direct, honest, blunt, rude person, and I work in a private Christian school in Minneapolis, and it doesn't seem to be welcome there. And I was like, no, it's not. It's not going to be. Like, the environment matters. Maybe if you're in upstate New York at a boarding school, they might like it, but not in the nicest state in the union and a religious school. Like, your environment is important for you to put your strengths into it, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So a lot of people in chat want to know, was there a, how do you discover your strength? So if you are in college or thereafter, like, is there a search method, or is it completely trial and error, or is it introspection? Since you've thought about this a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew you were fast from when you were a kid, so that helped.
It did, but I was still, I mean, we're so wired to overcome our weaknesses that it's really counterintuitive some of the times to and you have to double down. Like, you have to, like, okay, I suck at this right now, but let me do it for a while. And I think there's roughly a 2-year rule. This is probably the best advice I give. If you're working at something and you're over 18 for 2 years and you're not seeing progress, it's probably time to say, all right, that's a weakness. I shouldn't be doing it. I need to either quit, redesign my approach, or make it a hobby. Like, it's not, you don't necessarily have to quit everything you're bad at. Like golf, like, lots of people suck at golf, but they still do it. They just don't make it their primary source of income.
Sure. You can enjoy something you're not that good at.
Right.
That's a great point.
I think one of the really big disconnects with people is that society puts value on certain traits, right? And certain strengths and weaknesses. And you probably have developed an internal list of these so that you're conscious, like, you were able to basically rattle off, like, if you're creative, you're generally disorganized. These are amazing things, right? Most people without that perception, I think the problem is that their traits don't align with what might be their success metrics. Right. So for example, like, if you're just not cut out to be a CEO and that's your jam, how do you answer that?
Well, then you shouldn't be. Like, yeah,
that's what I think. But like, people don't want to take that medicine.
They don't want to take it, and
yeah,
they're going to suffer and they're going to struggle, and they might someday be a CEO. Like, a time and effort can lead your way to paths, but that's like tiny steps up a giant mountain.
A huge, you're Sisyphus. Yeah, I think it's the right guy. Isn't the guy that pushes the shit up the hill?
The rock.
Yeah. And I think the other issue with this too, right, is like, people don't see, I think the thing that I'm taking away from you that is really, really powerful is adjacencies. Because, for example, you may not be able to be a CEO. You might be the number 4 guy at Facebook and make $500 million. Right. But because you have an adjacent skill set, but people they tunnel in on that prize. And man, I deal with this so much because I'm basically one of the number 1 authorities on digital media marketing as a thought leader. And so a ton of people come to me and ask me, how do I become a Twitch streamer? How do I become a YouTuber? Right. The number 1 job in America right now, the most desired job, but people in the 16 to 35 demographic is YouTuber. And so many people don't have it. They do not have what it takes, but there are, now that you're getting me thinking about this, there are tons of adjacencies that they can go to. And that's giga brain. That's so smart. Never thought about things that way.
Give me a super specific example. Somebody gave me a book about 10 years ago. There was 35 success stories. And number 34 was this woman who wanted to write books. And starting at 20, she wrote her first book. And she wrote the second book at 22. And she wrote 18 books. And none of them were published. And she had no success. And at age 55, she finally got her first book published that did reasonably well. And I was like, but she lived in a trailer.
Yeah.
Her full adult life. Like, this is not a success story. The little side note was, after that, she became an amazing editor for up and coming writers. She should have been doing all the time. It's very close, right? Writer, editor, right? Like it's still language and words and books and things like that. But we get so anchored to, oh, it must be this thing, right? I must be an endurance athlete when I'm not, right? And so as soon as you say, oh, I'm not an endurance athlete, but damn, I'm pretty good at doing sprints. Oh, maybe I should do this thing.
People are really attached to the identity of the thing. They see that, and they see all of the possible outcomes that can come from it, but they don't focus on like the adjacent outcomes and goals, which could be more profitable, could lead to more happiness, could lead to like alternative things in life. And yeah, that's such a good point.
Well, particularly in American society, we attach so much to our identity. Like it's very, I've talked about this a lot. I've talked about it with Devin. When something threatens your identity, the most common thing to do is find a way to reject or deny it, which, because actually questioning your own identity or recasting it while it's transformed, because in your case, John, you were able, as you describe it, to go from being an endurance athlete to a strength or speed, an anaerobic athlete. Some people, though, fear, well, if I let go of envisioning myself as an aerobic athlete, suddenly I'm nothing.
Right.
They don't know what's going to come next. And that's really that. I think that causes a lot of people to cling to that. You said if somebody does something for 2 years and isn't succeeding, they don't know what's going to come next. I guess, yeah.
And frankly, you're going, in order to do that, you're most likely going to reject the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're on a path. You're going to be a movie producer. You're going to be a musician. You're going to be a writer. You're going to be an entrepreneur. Whatever this narrow channel you've decided that is your identity, right? For me, it was going to be an aerobic athlete. And so I did it. I followed the path for 2 years and with the Olympic team and the best coaches in the world. And then this is the hard part. It didn't work and I was ready to quit. And you get this window when you're ready to quit, but you haven't quit something. And this applies to everything like a relationship, a job, a career, a sport, a music path, is you get this window of something called perspective. And you get to back up and say, wait, before I quit, am I making the right decision? Is there some other way to pursue this? And so when I quit the team, not the sport, and nobody wanted this to happen, this is what some of your younger audiences are going to have to do. They're going to have to quit the major. They're going to have to quit the music career. They're going to have to quit being a producer or a writer or a production artist. And they're going to have to be the thing that's next to it. But they're going to have to quit that thing. Everybody's going to come out of the woodwork and say, don't quit. Persevere. You're going to get there. Just keep at it, which is what happened to me. When I quit the team, everybody was at me. The coaches, the parents, the skaters, everybody. In fact, I went to 2 weeks after I quit the team, I went to a training camp because so many people were pissed at me. I went to a 1 week training camp. And after the first session, the coach pulled me over and he's like, I'm sorry, but the coaches and skaters have voted. You have to go home. So my own team voted me off the island. So I went back and I trained on my own after that. And that was actually the fuel for me to train hard every day by myself. You train by yourself and show up a year later and kick everybody's ass. But that's the point, right? You, if you're going to break with the status quo, or at least the status quo that you've set for yourself that other people are with good intentions are believing in, they're going to come at you and say, no, you can't. No, keep at it. But man, when you put the time in and you're not seeing success, it's time to turn left or right and find that other.
So I know, of course, because I've had a chance to read a lot of your story, you also, in the end, quit skating for good. Or at least you went back as a commentator after a very long pause, but you quit for quite a while. So that's like I guess in that case you did really quit. So maybe at the end of your 12-year career where you had won a medal early and then had high hopes and then it didn't work out again, you can share whatever you want about that, but then talk a little bit about the quitting, like actually quitting.
Well, and Devin was talking about it earlier, like when your identity is tied up with a particular path and you have some success, second place, right? First loser.
First loser in a pretty...
I didn't know what you... I didn't actually know. I didn't read the
Devin was talking about himself.
I was talking about, because I've consistently had second place finishes in in the company world. So yeah.
Well, John isn't going to feel too bad. His medal was silver, which God knows I would love to have one. I'll take
I
any
mean,
color they'll
like
give
you're
me.
still that's out of everyone that comes out to the Olympics and
Yeah.
shows up. Yeah, that's freaking insane.
But here's the thing: so I won the silver, and 4 years later, I went back for gold, and I didn't get it. And so instead, I was a one-timer, first loser. So only one Olympics, no gold medal. And so I literally I divorced hard because my identity was so tied up with it. So I didn't talk about it, I didn't write about it, I didn't think about it, I didn't speak to anybody, I didn't watch it for 10 years. And then NBC asked me to be the analyst 11 years later for the next Olympics, 1 year forward. So of course I couldn't say no. And so I'm back at the Olympics and warmly welcome back. The parents and skaters knew me and I knew them. And my job was to interview the parents, coaches, and skaters. And on the 16th day of the 17th day of the Winter Olympics, in about 20 seconds, one parent changed my entire life. And it's the only reason we're talking right now. And that was, 14 years ago. So we're at the games, and it's the night before the gold medal round for the men's Olympic relay, which is my event. And parent at dinner pulls me aside and says, "Hey, I want to tell you something." I said, "Okay." And he said, "I just want you to know that we wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for you." And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, "You wouldn't remember, but 12 years ago, after you won your silver medal, you came to a little reception in Bay City, Michigan. You put your medal around my son's neck, Alex. He was 11 years old at the time. The next day, he decided to join the Bay City Speed Skating Club. And tomorrow, he's in the gold medal final." And
Whoa.
that blew my mind.
Because you started thinking about butterfly effect type of stuff that like
It mattered.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It wasn't just about me being good or bad. It was actually, it mattered to somebody else.
Right. You started realizing you had, so the Zen saying of this is like you throw a rock into a pond and the ripple effect, you can't know how far it goes out. Right.
In this case, that ripple effect took 12 years.
Yeah, it can. Well, now imagine all the things you don't know about.
Right. And
yeah.
That's kind of the point. So I wrote the parent a letter that night, and he wrote me back. And after he got home, and so his letter back was just, I mean, it was like for me heartbreaking. But basically, he's like, "I got home, I went up to Alex's bedroom, his son, and his bulletin board above his bed is still the picture of you with Alex with your autograph on it. And I went downstairs and I printed a photo of you with Alex from 3 days ago with Alex's medal. He won a bronze medal the next day around your neck. I put it back in the Ziploc bag and I contemplated all the things that had to have taken place in those 12 years for those two photos to be in that bag together, hanging in a boy's bedroom where he only dreamed of such success." And then he concludes with this, which the guy's a brilliant writer. He doesn't know it, but "I guess you'll never know what you'll do or say or not do or say that could change somebody's life forever."
Yeah.
And that's words to live by, you know?
It's so important because we live in such a despondent world with all of the bad shit going on that we tend to think that we can't make an impact on things. And this exact story that John just told is exactly why things like small acts of kindness or things like changing like very small things or moving needles like a little bit, even as so much as smiling at someone in a grocery store can make enormous differences, because that can be a directional change that moves somebody. And I mean, what you did was, I think you were in a position of authority, and you, through humility, gifted some of that power to someone else. That sort of ceremony, right, of putting that medal around his neck. That goes way back zillions of years back to like the tribal stuff of that feeling of initiation, of giving that person permission to do that, and in doing so inspiring that person. So if anyone in life has that ability to have that authority or that kind of ability to give that to somebody, you empower people. But you can do it all the same just through small action. I love what you're saying here.
Well, it gives the ability to believe it could be you, like wearing that medal and having the picture of yourself with the medal on gives the child the belief this could be, like, why not me? It's not out of reach. It's not impossible. I think, because we've danced around this topic, but how many things that we could be great at do we take ourselves out of because, well, that's not me. I can't see myself as that person. This is a lot of what gets talked about actually in role modeling and Black Lives Matter, right? Is that without female leadership models or minority leadership models, people can't see themselves as certain things. So I don't want to. I'd love for you to tell Devin a little bit about your clocks. You and I already
You're
talked
not leaving this call without giving me a full explanation of those clocks. I can't live. I will like be in my room, like scratching fucking, like reading all your books and your articles, like scratching like things, like drawing letters. Like I have to know.
He'll be like, "What's that? A beautiful mind." You don't want to turn Devin into a beautiful mind out in the shack
much.
with all the strings.
Yeah, I will be. Yeah.
So here's the gist. So part of the weird world of sport is that hundreds of seconds can change your entire life, right? It's, as Seinfeld puts it, it's first, second, third, never heard of you, right? It's so close. And that was always the life, right? Like tiny increments of time can fundamentally change everything. And what I realized as an adult after I left sport is, oh wait, that's true all the time. So life is not made up of
oh shit
minutes, hours, and months, and years. Life is literally a series of trajectory changing moments that happen sometimes randomly. But you said yes to the girl or you didn't. You chose the job or you didn't. Showed up for this call or you didn't. Like every once in a while, you get what the Greeks would call a kairos moment. So there's chronos and kairos in Greek language. Chronos is clock time. They don't give a shit about that. They hardly ever use that word. Kairos is human time. And the etymology is when the archer releases the arrow and the trajectory is set, all instantaneously. And so life is made up of kairos moments where, just like when that parent pulled me aside, right? 20 seconds changed everything about my life. I never, ever spoke about my sport until after that conversation. And now it's all I do for a living.
Because you understand the impact. The kairos moment, funny enough, that's related to the original word for sin in Greek was the parallel to that word, and it meant to miss the mark. It didn't mean to commit some like active, right? So in that same analogy, you're using the arrow to shoot. Kairos is the moment of hitting the target. And then original sin is the idea of missing the mark, but you can always notch another arrow and hit. And in Japanese, that word is satori, right? A profound moment outside of time.
I did not know the Japanese one, so thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
So what I noticed, how old are you, Devin?
No one knows.
He doesn't talk on stream.
Yeah. I'll tell you later, but no, yeah, it's a whole thing. It's dumb.
If you're getting close to 30, right around 30, people start to notice that time speeds up the older they get.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And 98% of people over the age of 35 feel that each summer is shorter than the last. And this is bullshit. There's still 7,884,000 seconds in a summer, same as when you're 8.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cognitive bias. And so a number of years ago, after retiring from skating, I'm like, well, this is bullshit. Like, I need to fix this. And so I went and I called Dr. Phil Zimbardo of Stanford, who's called Father Time by a number of people because he's written a bunch of books on time. And he's like, yeah, that's well documented. Now, vast majority of people across cultures all around the world that feel that time is accelerating the older you get. And I was like, okay, great. So how do we unwind it? How we, go counterclockwise and slow down time? And he's like, well, nobody's done that research. And I was like, all right, ding, 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 sign me up. All right, I'm going to do it. So I spent 10 years investigating the neuroscience and psychology of time perception. And in a short answer to Ethan's question, the cognitive bias that causes time to speed up the older you get is fundamentally easily overridden. However, it takes the kind of actions and risks that most adults avoid because we don't like aggressive actions and risks. So when you think about the brain of an 8-year-old, well, everything's new, everything's risky because you don't know the outcomes, and everything's either super fun or super awful. And so we have to actually emulate in many ways the lives of 8-year-olds, just have a lot of new experiences, doing new things that are full of risks in order to achieve the kinds of life-changing moments, kairos moments, that embed themselves through the hippocampus, written with help from the amygdala, that are permanently written forever, that are retraceable, because you are the stack of your memories. This is the thing. The more memories you write and the more highly recallable they are, the longer you live. That's all that matters. And 8-year-olds write a shitload of memories that are highly recallable, and most 50-year-olds write no memories that are not recallable, and hence life disappears and presses into nothing. But if you take the kinds of risks and do the kinds of unique things that lead to the kinds of memories that are highly written and highly recallable, voila, I am at least 20 years into 2020. Because I do a lot of scary, interesting, weird stuff.
It makes perfect sense. A lot of people's perception of 2020 is that this is a very slow year because there is so much stuff that is making significant impact on them.
Right.
That like they're like, oh my God, like there's so much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, a lot of office workers are actually having the reverse experience. Every day is the same. They don't leave their home, they don't commute. And so they're actually losing track of days, weeks, and months because with shelter in place, their scope of experience has been reduced.
Shrinks down.
And so every day is the same.
I lost June. I don't know what happened in June.
Mm-hmm. So like, for example, people that can relate in Twitch chat, because what we do as gamers is never leave the house. If I have a day where like Ethan sometimes manages to drag me, like he comes to my house and like puts a black bag over me when I'm playing video games for like 16 hours like a troglodyte, and he forces me outside, and then like I wake up after he uses like the tranquilizer, and I'm in the middle of the woods and I have to like hike down somewhere. Like he'll do this to get me outside. But I will like I was actually telling my girlfriend about how I like really vividly remember a lot of these hikes I go on with him. Like I remember that one where we went like straight up and we got to see that great view, because it's so different from my normal cursory experience. Like it's like something that I don't normally do. Every time I call Ethan up, he's fucking river rafting or I don't know, like riding a bear or something, right? And it's because
That's next week.
Yeah, he's got it on his schedule though. It's like, and it's like every time it's because like I think that I use, he's one of my people I look up to in terms of like, damn, I want to be doing that kind of shit, because like it really does slow down time. But I think that a really cool lesson of that is like, it was what you're saying is like, as long as you can do things that challenge you, you could potentially do that within your own house, learning skills, right? Sure. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
Let's make, and I'll sum up this entire book, which I'm working on, in one sentence, which is highly complex when you unpack it. But the value of an increment of time is not related to its duration.
Mm-hmm.
So the value of an increment of time is not related to its duration. So you can think about it with maybe your girlfriend. You could spend all evening or multiple days in COVID and lie in bed and watch TV, and it might be zero value add. There might be no memory written because it's too rote.
Yeah.
But if you at some point turn to her and say, boy, you know what? We've been stuck together for 3 weeks. And I love you more than I've ever thought I could love another human being. In 5 seconds, you've changed the trajectory.
You've created an experience. Yeah.
Right? You created a Kairos moment. This is how it works, right? So people struggle with this with kids, like people that have kids, because they're like, oh, I need to spend quality time. I need to be with them all the time. And that's not really true, right? The reality is you're much better off, even if you're a consultant, you're away 4 days a week, and you show up and your toddler is having a meltdown and you give her a hug for 30 seconds. That 30 seconds is more important than the 4 days you're gone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is the way life is built from these moments. And when you can build more of these into your day, not necessarily your day, your month, your year, it doesn't matter. Like the filler material
doesn't have to be all the time.
Yeah. So what John is essentially saying is that time is not relative to impact. That is to say that you could accomplish an incredible life-changing event in 30 seconds, and something as much as you could in days and weeks and hours. Yet we're not trained to think that way. We're trained to think that a large span of time must pass to make significant impact. And the Buddhists have a really great way of looking at this, where a goal of Vipassana meditation is to actually separate themselves from time. It's to separate themselves from this sort of like Euclidean perception that things are going A to B. And a lot of Buddhists, they will tell you that they live in a lot longer. Like by the book, but by the biological clock, it's the same. But their perception of things is so detached from that rote process that you're thinking about that they actually experience multiple lives within one.
Yeah. No. It's
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
and as Ethan knows, I'll just interject.
go ahead.
I've been struggling like with COVID. Like I'm not so good at staying in place. It's not my thing. So over the last 6 weeks, I've sold almost everything I own, except for my clocks. And in 3 weeks, I'm moving into an RV I bought last week, and I will be living in that for at least the next 6 months to a year, and traveling around the U.S. for now. I don't think I'm allowed to leave. I don't think Canada or Mexico are letting us in. But that's my way of like regaining control over the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's so it happens that I beat John to this punch thanks to my awesome wife suggesting it by about 2 weeks. So I've had a 21-foot camper van for 3 weeks. And I will say this idea of writing down memories. So John was gracious enough. We had a call a few weeks ago to get ready for this call, and he told me some of his ideas, and I've watched his TEDx talk, Time 2.0, which I highly recommend.
Dude, Ethan cheated so hard. I just wandered in here.
Yeah, well, that's okay, but that's our relationship, Devin. You're spontaneous, and I'm not. Strengths and weaknesses, we know that.
So well prepared, yeah.
So I tried this, though. I went out this weekend with my family in the RV, and I was thinking, like, oh, how do we make these moments? Not all the time. We plan on going on a hike, though, and we Googled directions to the hike. And we're driving down this sort of country road, and it's a big van, right? A camper van's 8 feet tall. And at some point, Google tells us to turn left onto a Forest Service road, like gravel up a hill into the middle. And I'm looking at the map, and it's saying that the next 14 miles are going to take us 57 minutes.
Yes.
And I'm like, so I'm about to drive a 21-foot long, no possibility of turning around camper van down a single-lane Forest Service gravel road that I have no idea if it goes through or if it's, washed out. That was memorable. Like that drive. And I can tell you for other reasons, every passenger in the van, it's memorable for them because they were wondering the whole time, will they live? Because, mountain road, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, everyone has this experience in school, in high school. How many times have you been or college? How many of you have been in a boring as shit class you can't leave and it lasts forever? You're like, oh my God, I've been here for 10 hours. This is terrible. And it's like 30 minutes have passed, right? Like I had that with so many of my courses in college because I'm one of those people that like, I can't do one thing. I gotta be everywhere. And that is, I think, a very visceral experience that a lot of people can relate to with this time thing. I love that you've quantified this because I feel like a lot of people understand this at sort of a basal level, but nobody's actually really written it down.
Right.
Yeah, it's really cool. And now I understand the clocks. Yeah, because time is really relative to your experience of it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And this is the most compelling thing. If you watch John's TEDx talk, which I recommend, he talks about go back to having those 8-year-old summers. Like have every summer be like the one where you were 8 and summer just unspooled endlessly in front of you and took forever in a good way. And I certainly I'm unlike Devin, my age is not secret. I'm 50. And I completely want to go back to 8-year-old summers, unspooling time that way. And John has talked about it's really two things. It's unique experience, but it's also emotion, having emotional investment. Like just doing something new will get you halfway there, but caring about it a lot, whether you succeed. By the way, John, have you ever heard of this idea of type 1, 2, and 3 fun? Have you ever heard?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've talked about this.
Yeah.
So bottom line, type 2 fun means it was some pain and misery, and type 3 fun means you probably nearly died and you never want to do it again. But man, you will never forget whatever that was. Like those moments live forever.
Like, I'll tell you how the brain works on this, and this is new. Like, this is less than 2 years. So, and Devin, I'm sure you know this, but the hippocampus is what writes your memories from short term to long term.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's sweeping it about every 2 seconds on normal, like this. It's sort of like writing a Polaroid that has sound and emotions too, right? But think of it as like stacking Polaroids as it sweeps. Now it can hold up to 7 seconds. So if you're really focused, it can do it slower, right? But here's what happens when there's a highly emotional or physically interesting situation. The amygdala, which sits right next to the hippocampus, and they're on both left and right, goes, wake up. It's a sentinel. And it's like, never do this again or always do this again. And then it tells the hippocampus to write memories a shitload faster. So it writes 10 to 20 times faster. Now it's shooting Polaroids and stacking them really quickly. And the thing is about amygdala-driven memories is A, they store a lot of data. B, they're incredibly highly recallable. And C, you hardly ever forget them. So if you ever had a car accident, then here's the other thing. It's like, if time feels like it's slowing down in some situation, that's because your amygdala is kicked in, calls you
ramping it up.
Right. So you're actually, your frame rate increases, which feels like time slows down. So that's what's going on.
And there's the evolutionary reason for this, right, is because the brain consumes a shitload of fuel. So it has to, so it has to move. So it has to move most of its processes to road because we didn't always have access to like a ton of food. So, but we lower our total energy by actually like making most processes road. But now that you have infinite amounts of resources, you can game the system.
Totally right.
So that you can create experiences and you can actually slow down time in these ways by being conscious of this.
Totally right.
Yeah.
3% of your mass and 25% of your caloric burn. And the most energy intensive process in the brain is writing memories.
Yes.
So it doesn't want to do it. So if you've ever driven to work the same way and you wondered how you got there, that's because the hippocampus is like, nothing to do here.
Yeah, it just can turn off and that saves all that energy, which you don't have to consume in caloric, because previously it was really hard to find food, right? And you wouldn't find food for days and days and days. And so if you can shut off a process, you will. But if you see, oh, tiger there, tiger bad, and it like roars at you and screams at you, you're going to need an imprint of that so you don't make that mistake again because it can cost you your life. So evolutionarily, we're always keeping track of these things that are the biggest lessons for us because they will they'll potentially threaten us the most in the future.
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And to sum that up, I mean, you that both of you are, Ethan and Devin, you're the sum of your memories. The sum of your recallable memories is the you that you are.
Yeah.
And if you let it go on all of autopilot, if you don't remember how you got to work, you may as well have been dead.
Yeah, totally. I 100% agree.
That is, yeah.
It's super crazy, but it's true. Yeah, because
the only difference is if you're dead, there's theoretically no potential for change. Right. But otherwise, the time is equally lost. Like that, you're right. You were dead.
Which is so crazy that most of us spend most of our lives dead because because you're also sleeping a third of it, which is literally dead. So you're awake and half of your life is fucking dead, and then you're sleeping another third, and you literally spend like 10 minutes a day awake. But this is a completely conscious choice that we can control.
Totally.
Oh,
why I bought the RV.
All right, see, Devin. Now you understand why I was hyped to have John on.
Yeah.
So
this is big. This is good. This is good shit. This is big energy.
Let me prompt you for a story, John. I have a friend. His mom won several Olympic medals, and so I asked him, well, what did she like to talk about that was unusual? And he gave me a few prompts of things that aren't the usual, like what did it feel like to win, etc. I'm curious, though, what would you say in your Olympic experience stands out that is a memory like that people might not think to ask about, that you have that super vivid emotional connection to?
Great question. So it's not what you'll expect, but I think
that's the point.
So it's not the medal stand. It's not the normal stuff. So after I graduated Stanford and I joined the Olympic team, I qualified my first year to go to the World Cups, but I didn't qualify to get paid for it, like for them to fund it. And so I had a choice of staying back in Lake Placid and training with the team or going to the World Cups, but paying for it myself. Now, I didn't come from money, so I was like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So I sold a bicycle to pay for the trip for $2,000. And I flew to Amsterdam, $400 ticket. And then I bought $400 worth of speed skates. I had another $400. So now I had $1,200 for 2.5 months in Europe.
Ooh.
You know, and my brilliant plan was to hitchhike around and then couch surf with the families at the World Cups over the next 9 weeks. And so I go down and I stick out my thumb and I'm not getting any rides. I'm in Amsterdam. I got to get to Munich. It's 1,000 kilometers away. Eventually, I finally get picked up by this giant red truck. He pulls me through the German border. I fall asleep. I wake up in the middle of the night. It's 2 a.m. He drops me off. He pushes me out like you got to go. And he roars off into the French border. And now I'm in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m. and it starts pouring down sleet. It's 35 degrees and everything I've put on doesn't matter because I'm soaked to the bone and my jacket's actually turning to like steel, right? Because it's freezing. And I'm trying to stay warm. I jog down the road for half hour and then an hour and then 2 hours and 3 hours, no cars. So I'm about to die. Like I'm sitting on my bags at 4 a.m. and I'm frozen to death. And I think I'm done. And then I get this idea and I go back up the embankment. I'd been up there before and I was like, oh wait, there's all this hay here. Like somebody mowed this. So I push it together into a pile and I make a pile that's 8 feet long and 5 feet wide and about 5 feet high. And then I did the hardest thing I've ever done as an adult human being. I stripped naked in that field because everything I had on was wet. And I put on the only dry clothes I had, which were 3 speed skating skin suits from the bottom of my bag. Put one at the other after the other, and then I burrowed down into the center of this pile, turned sideways, and I had a tube that my skates came in, and I put that in front of my mouth, and I could breathe, and I was warm, and I was safe, and I was dry, and I fell right asleep.
Holy shit.
So I slept all night during freezing rain, and I woke up, and my watch said 1 p.m. I'm like, I can't have slept for 9 hours, and it was dark, so I like burrowed out of my pile of hay, and it was brilliant sunshine. It was one in the afternoon, so I slept for 9 hours. And the reason I'd woke up is I could feel the Autobahn like shaking me, and so as I like stretched, the Autobahn shut off, and I thought that's weird, and I turned and I looked behind me, and there was a thresher stopped about 10 feet short of turning me into bloody French fries. And he had been driving along, and he saw this weird looking nest right built in his field, out of which hatched now. I had 3 speed skating
a naked dude.
I had a bright silver and pink and purple skin suit with the hood. Like he thinks I'm an alien that hatched out of his field. And I wave and smile, and he just looks out and he's just like. So I went and I eventually got a ride, but yeah, I'll never forget that night. That's probably the most memorable experience of my speed.
That's some Jim Carrey shit. Like that movie where he comes out of the rhino's butt. That's fucking amazing. That's one of the coolest stories I've ever fucking heard. What a crazy sequence of events to get you to that.
Yeah, and pivoting off a question about Olympics, and you end up at the in a field in Germany and in skin suits.
If a freaking purple man jumped out of my fucking haystack in my farm, I'm out. That's it, dude. I'd be like, I knew it. The Pentagon hid this all along. I'm out of here. I knew it.
42 of Germany, I think.
It'd be like the Power Ranger coming out or something. Like, dude, I'd be donezo, man. Whatever that could be could not be good. Let someone else figure that shit out. That's insane. So did you? So then did you find your way back? I mean, obviously you did because you're here. But like, how did you get back after that?
Pro tip: if you need a hitchhiking ride in southern Germany, pink and purple skin suit wins. I put my thumb out. I had 3 cars stop. I chose the fastest looking one. They took me right to the rink, 500 kilometers away. Like they took me all the way there. I got on the ice. I didn't need to change. I was already in the and I was skating some laps. I was with the Dutch team because I missed the American practice, and I skated a couple laps, and then some of the kids from the Dutch team were following me because I'm a cool USA guy, and then I heard some like scuffling and swearing, and then one of the older skaters skated next to me, and he's like, "Oh, John, there's a problem." I said, "Yes," and he said, "There's grass coming off your skin suit. Maybe you need to shake it." So I had to go shake it out, and I told him the story later. And I'll see these guys even today, like, because I work for NBC every 4 years, and I'll see one of the guys from that era, and it's the only nickname I ever lost. He'll be like, "Hey, Grasshopper."
That is insane. That's like such a crazy story. Oh my, on so many levels. But you're so right that like it ties into your experience. Like, how could you ever forget that? You probably remember every moment of that experience.
Oh, I mean, it's type 3 fun. Like, what you
Yeah.
can't not, right?
Yeah, I
You're
know.
fully lit. Your
Ethan,
amygdala's like,
It's the definition of type 3 because it literally,
Yeah,
he said he was believed he might die.
this is Ethan talks about this a lot with me, where like Ethan has these. You're gonna explain it because you're gonna do it way better than me. But like these levels of fun that also correspond to danger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John's
Ethan has one of
familiar
these
with
stories.
them, but I can
Okay.
explain them to chat. So type 1 fun is regular fun. Like you did something, it was fun. Type 2 fun, there's different definitions, but type 2 fun is where something goes wrong and it was unpleasant. And like, it's the story of you were going somewhere and there was a flat tire, you ran out of gas and you had to have this adventure and something you never expected happened. And it's very memorable, but it wasn't really what you intended. The most common versions of type 2 fun turn out to be family camping trips. Like that's the automatic, and that's what I did with my family this weekend, right? But that's like the automatic type, because something always goes wrong camping. The camper breaks down or the water doesn't work or someone forgot to put ice in the cooler and everything's spoiled or whatever. There's always something wrong. And then type 3 fun is what John just described, where you have to get all the way out to where you think you might die or some other super high stress, you might get mangled. And those are like photographic moments. And I have a few of those that are, I have not competed in the Olympics, but I have managed to get myself into type 3 fun situations. And the thing, though, that you're prompting me on that's crazy is I've always gotten into them unexpectedly or unintentionally.
right.
They're where something went wrong. And I think what you're pointing out is you want to get as close to them as you can without actually getting mangled.
Right.
As frequently as you can within reason.
It's crazy when you start thinking this way. I totally agree with Ethan. Like, I think of like type 3 fun. I was on the Rogue River in Oregon, and we were river rafting. This is part of the like insane shit that my parents and I did. Like, we're river rafting, and my dad decides to take this kayak, this inflatable kayak, down a rapid called the Devil Staircase. It's like a class 4 rapid. Like it's like this. It's exactly like it sounds. Like a stone staircase type of thing. And he has this inflatable kayak, and he's normally a really smart guy. He's got a PhD and a bunch of, but he's a really good. But this was not his best moment. We're in the big raft. I don't think I've ever told this story on stream either. We're in the big raft. He's in the inflatable the kayak. He goes down. Kayak tips over. We lose him. I remember every single second of this, right? He's underwater. He remembers every second of it too. He is panicking because the way that water works, when you go, like when water flows down in a river and it creates a sinkhole, there's a churning effect that goes around in a circle. Like that's how riptides kill people, right? And the solution is to swim diagonally out of it, because you circumvent the circular tide. But most people don't think like that. They just freak out and they panic and die. He thought it through. So we're like 2 minutes go by. We're on the raft looking for this guy. And then my dad pops up just on the edge of the raft right there and just like waves. And like the guide of the raft was like, "I thought you were dead." And he said, "Ye of little faith." And I just remember that just like second for second. And I think what Ethan said is 100% true. What you've challenged us to do, I think both of us have gotten this same impact, but hopefully people from the community have as well, and people that watch these videos in the future will, is you've challenged to create those moments.
Yeah. So I'll give you the 5 drivers.
Yeah.
They trigger the amygdala. Okay.
Hmm.
Because that's what it really requires. Is the amygdala has to be awake. Is it unique? That's obvious.
Hmm.
A really interesting one is it beautiful? So beauty, for whatever reason, tends to trigger the amygdala to wake up and take note.
What do you mean by beautiful? Sorry to interrupt.
It could be anything. Like, is it a beautiful scene? Is it a beautiful light? Is it a beautiful voice? Is it a beautiful conversation? Is it a beautiful woman or man? Like, just our sense of beauty, it triggers the amygdala. Always remember this or never remember this. Like, always do this, never do this. So unique, beautiful, physically intense, not always required, but usually helpful. Emotionally intense, always required. And then the last is something we already touched on, is the flow state. Now, if you can do all 5 of these at once, where you have something that's unique, beautiful, emotionally intense, physically intense, and you're in your best self, those are the moments that can stack up to create the kind of memory that can be worth a year in 20 seconds.
For people that are just initiating into this, a really, really simple way to feel this very quickly is an extremely good workout. Because you engage that third one that he said, that physical intensity. And I used to do things like Tough Mudders and Spartan races because I wanted to create this sort of sense of like imprinting because of that physical strain. And I remember it, like every bone in my body remembers that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And John, that's a good segue. You run some sort of event like a Tough Mudder, right? Like that, but it's not like it, but it's got similarities.
Well, I designed a moment. This was a couple of years ago when I was really like trying to test this hypothesis of those 5 things: beauty, uniqueness, physical intensity, emotional intensity, and flow. And flow is like maybe the trickiest if you don't know your strengths, but I'm pretty solid on mine, particularly when it comes to physical gifts, because I have very few. So that makes it easily to figure out the ones that I do have. And so my physical capacities are, I'm able to generate lots of power for short intervals while balancing, traveling at high speeds, turning only left with a group of people trying to kill me. So that's my gift as an athlete. That's short track speed skating and velodrome cycling, the 2 sports I've gone to the world championships in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, oh, wait. So running with the bulls in Pamplona, the last 200 meters is a left turn with a bunch of people trying to kill me while traveling at high speeds. So I ran with the bulls a couple of years ago, and I was like, all right, it's beautiful. It's intense. It's physically intense. It's unique for sure. And I thought, I should be good at this. Like, I should just know like how it works. And so I lined up, and the bulls came over that crest, and I could see their hooves pounding and their horns down and the muscles coming at me. And I dropped down behind a couple of bulls, and I followed that swinging tail. And I went through the plaza and down into the tunnel where a bunch of people were falling, because that's what happens when there's not enough space, and that happens in speed skating and cycling. And I ran into the arena, and I raised my arms up, and 25,000 people are on their feet, and that whole thing lasted 17 seconds.
Wow.
But it's a lifetime.
Yeah.
Because it laid down so much memory. So this stuff works. Like, if you can design those moments, and here's the thing for you, Devin, and maybe more for you, Ethan, is you can gift them to other people.
Oh, shit.
If you can design the perfect moment for somebody, for what they love or what they're good at, with the kind of emotional intensity they care about, you can fundamentally change their lives and reset the trajectory in a Kairos moment.
Yeah, I was able to create one of those moments for someone a month or 2 ago, and
you've created several of those for me, Ethan.
Well,
like you alone have done that. 4th of July, our hiking experiences, that time we were in that one restaurant having that really good conversation when we were coming back from that whole day trip.
Yep.
Dude, like Ethan, you have legitimately created those moments for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I mean, if you, that's like, and to our point about being dead or alive, it's giving someone more life, right? Like giving them something, that they will remember, and that they'll go back to and touch on, and tying all the way back to our earlier discussion where John put his medal around that 11-year-old. he gave Alex, right? He gave Alex life in a way, like something that then became so much more, and his dad.
Dude, John, I've always thought that we need like an adult boot camp. That like you know, like, and you're the guy. Like if you ever want to like do this, we'll find the funding for it. Like we need a place where adults go together and they do like teamwork exercises and they do things that like create these. Because like, how often was it when you used to go? I don't know if any of like people as kids. I used to go to camps. It's because my parents would be driven crazy by me in the summers. They'd be like, get this fucking guy out of here. And like, I would go to every camp in the world. I'd go to sailing camp. I went to Bible camp. I went to freaking like mountain climbing camp. I went to space camp. Like I went to all these camps. And I remember a lot of those experiences. And then like when you're an adult, you don't get to like all of a sudden it's just like not okay to like be playful and explore and like be that like childlike person. We need like an adult camp. Like
let's talk about it.
Camp. Is what?
Time camp.
Is this a thing? Do you do this?
Well, we should talk about it. I did one and it nearly killed me.
Why?
Because it's just so much work, but
But
I won't spoil it. But basically the whole thing, there was no agenda. Nobody knew what was going to happen. We put everybody on 50 people on a bus that we blacked out all the windows. I told them that we'll see you in Tijuana in 13 hours. There's no bathroom. And they went 45 minutes up a giant mountain. The bus driver parked at the peak, swerved to a stop, got out and ran away. And they're like, what the fuck is happening? Like they stayed in the bus for 10 minutes, but I was watching from binoculars and I thought it was crazy. And then they finally got out. And then they're like, what do we do? You know, because I wanted to create like uncertainty, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so they eventually saw that we had broken some watches and let a little pass. So they had to hike for almost 20 minutes, which is forever when you don't know really what you're doing.
Yeah.
So we timed it right for sunset and they crested a hill. There's this grove of aspens and we had a 50-person table laid out with candles. And as soon as they could see it, the music started and people were literally in tears. And so the whole weekend was experience after experience of unexpected, emotional, intense, physically intense, emotionally intense experiences. I'd love to do it again. So let's talk about that.
Oh,
dude, I'm so
we're in.
Ethan, did you know?
I just put in my chat here. Just take my money.
Yeah, seriously. Like we'll find a way. Like no, we'll find a way to help you do it. Like that's my. Ethan, did you know that I'm most likely gonna go to boot camp, Army boot camp?
No, but I knew that you haven't. You told me about going up in the plane for the Golden Knights.
That was the first thing we did. We did the jump. But John, I am actually thinking of going to boot camp. My agency has a partnership with the U.S. Army, so I'm not gonna like go join, but I'm just gonna like go. And it's because of this reason. It's because I want to create that experience combined with the self-improvement and discipline and be able to tell that story. And I think like as an adult, like I think I'm soft. I think I did all this cool stuff when I was a kid and when I was a teenager. I challenged myself. I was competitive in martial arts, one of the top people in the nation. And like nowadays, I feel like I've slowed down and I want to do something like that kicks it up. Like having that opportunity for adults to do. Get like having that option for people be fucking amazing. Like there's so many people that like it's so cool how you create that experience just by triggering uncertainty. Mm-hmm. Like you put people in a bus and just leave them for 10 minutes and they remember that for the rest of their lives because it's so out of the norm of what they do and day to day.
Is that one of you've listed? Sorry, you go ahead.
So we did a bunch of those experiences over the weekends. It involved scorpions and
that's a meme in my community is scorpions. Okay, that's insane.
We did a tough mudder that was on a 0.1K tough mudder, so it was all of the pain but none of the distance. Anyways, so we finished the weekend, and my favorite thing I think when I got back was I got 8 messages, a couple were voicemail, a couple text, mostly email, that were the same story, which I found so fascinating. So the story was identical. I mean, the words were almost the same. So I got home and I was decompressing from the weekend, so many things to remember. And then I was like, oh shit, I got to go get the mail because the mailbox is going to be full. So they go get the mail. And then they're like, oh shit, the fridge, the all the produce is going to be bad. I got to go clean that out before I go to bed because I don't want to deal with that in the morning. So they go to the mailbox, and the mailbox is empty. And they go to the fridge, and everything's ripe because they were gone for 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
Intuitively, they thought they were gone for a month. And they couldn't get like past that until they saw that the mailbox was empty and their produce was okay. And that was the goal, right? To fake people into, oh, wait, I've been gone for a month or longer, when it really was less than 45 hours, 48 hours, 45 hours was the experience.
That's so cool. Dang.
Do you think, I was going to ask, is uncertainty a part of this? You mentioned the 5 elements. You didn't, I guess you talked about, well, you talked about risk, but you mentioned uncertainty in this, and it wasn't one of your 5 elements, I don't think.
Ethan, I need like 2 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's related to uniqueness. Like,
Okay.
so uncertainty and uniqueness tend to go hand in hand. They don't always, but when you're uncertain, the amygdala wakes up and it's like, okay, wait, scanning, writing memories. And so, yeah, anytime you can create some uncertainty or unique experiences, I'll lump those together. Then the amygdala wakes up and it's going to write memories that are highly recallable.
This is really interesting. One of the things I do, my stream here on Twitch is all about coaching people in their careers. But for some locals a year or so ago, I had the idea of I'll do small group coaching while we hike outdoors, and I did a hike along a river. And I should check back in with those 3 people because I bet they have really good, really strong memory of what we talked about, right? Because it would have been so unusual, out in nature and unexpected and unknown. So,
yeah, no, that's so smart. This is what I'm planning to do. Part of this trip is when I go to a particular setting, I'm just gonna let people know, hey, I'm gonna be walking from A to B, whatever it is, and you're welcome to join me, and we'll talk about stuff. And at the end of A to B, I'm gonna do an outdoor, socially distancedly safe talk at dusk, and so that's gonna be part of my sort of Chautauqua of this RV trip.
Wow. And do you have a plan on where you're going, or is it figure it out as it happens?
Roughly. Well, we'll have to sort of plan ahead at least a week or two. But yeah, we're going to go Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Utah,
the West, yeah,
Nevada, California, Arizona, and then Louisiana and Florida.
Okay.
Over 6 months.
Sounds like a hell of a trip. I mean, I love the American West, so there's, so, all right. Let's see. I have one more leading question about the Olympics, I guess, just because it's fascinating. It's a unique experience you've had. I've heard that the Olympic Village can have some crazy times. Is there anything that sticks out as one of these memories or a story from the Olympic Village?
So Devin's probably too young, but the first time I met Tanya Harding.
Awesome. Just that phrase, the first time I met. Okay, please continue.
You know who that is, Devin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kinda.
I definitely do.
Really big Olympian. Yes.
And she was in the movie I, Tanya. Well, the movie was made up.
Mm-hmm.
But the first time I met Tanya Harding, I was naked and so was she.
Okay. That's
a true story. The reality behind why that was is in the Olympic Village, you can go get a massage 24/7 in the performance room. And in the performance room, this is probably true all years, but particularly in Norway, the routine was you would go into a changing room, put on a towel or 2 if you're a girl, but you're not wearing anything. And then you go out to a table and somebody magically appears and gives you a massage. And now the tables were in pairs. So you got 2 tables and 2 tables, and each 2 tables had a TV with Olympics running on 24/7. So I got in pretty late at night and I'm laying on a table and I'm watching the TV out of the corner of my eye. And then I hear somebody is lying next to me, but I can't see them because I'm facing this way. And then it's time for me to flop and I see a blonde bob of hair. And I kind of think I might know who it is, but I'm not really sure. And then literally like 10 seconds later, the TV says breaking news and the Jeff Gillooly and Tanya Harding affair. here's Tanya Harding may have known about the attack on Nancy Kerrigan, and then her head swivels, and we're literally like, a foot apart, and our eyes lock, and I freak out because I'm like a voyeur in her nightmare, and I'm gonna pretend that I don't know her, and I didn't hear it, right? So I turn away, and she reaches out and she grabs my wrist because I had the remote in my right hand. She grabs that with her left hand, and she grabs the wrist. She says, "No, turn it up, I want to hear it." No shame, none at all. She just wanted to hear her name on TV.
You know what is really crazy about you? You're using the concepts you teach in your language. And the way you opened up that story was deliberate to get that imprint of it. That when I first met Tanya Harding, both she and I were naked. You're using all the things you know about time to imprint the stories that you tell so that people have a more visceral emotional reaction.
Well, you're just smarter than me, Devin.
I don't know about that. What did he say is, Devin, if you track back, what did he say was his superpower, right? What did he say?
He said it was to take down detailed or very complex concepts and put them into building blocks that tell through analogies and stories.
So
yeah.
Whether he did it consciously or not, right? That may just be a gift, but I'm sure he's well.
It's not.
I would guess it's
trained.
totally conscious.
Yeah, it definitely is, dude. Yeah, take it from a clickbait master, man. Yeah, I'm telling you, he knows what he's doing. It's really cool to watch when you see somebody that has. There's a thing that I used to study a lot. It's kind of a meme. It's called NLP, neuro linguistic programming. It sounds really impressive. But what it really is just the ability to communicate something better. Because the meaning of what you say to someone else is only what they receive. Right. Doesn't matter what you say.
Yeah.
If you say purple monkey blue dishwasher changes their life, they're like, they get off drugs and they pursue their MBA, right? Like, you've done it. You don't need to say some highly complex or articulate thing. You just need to convey the emotion and the power that gets you to where you want them to go. Or where they need to go.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I feel like you have a lot of conscious attention to that effort. That you tell stories really well. Like when I go back through this and I listen to it, I'll be like, okay, I see.
Well, thank you, Devin.
So, John, you've shared a ton with us, and I'm super appreciative. I don't want to keep you too long, knowing it's Central Time. For you, and therefore a little later. Devin, is there something else you really want to hit? Or I don't know, you may have 50 questions, but any parting questions for John? Just because I want to be respectful of his.
Yeah. If I do have 50, but if I had to summarize, if I had to like put something into, I think like what is the most important question to ask you, it would be, armed with the knowledge that you have, how do you structure your life to better impact people positively?
Oh, wow. Well done, Devin.
Great question. And it's one I think about a lot because I want to give this gift to other people. And the risk, I think, is taken wrong. It feels to some people, particularly and this is where it gets hard, is that the play it safers, the status quoers, the people that just think put your head down and you'll achieve, and that's the way to get life done, can get triggered by this notion that, oh, you could do things differently. You might have done things differently. You should have done things differently. And the struggle I feel is that with an Ethan or a Devin, I'm preaching to the choir. You already get it. I'm literally just giving you words to describe something you already know. But the people that don't, they're not awake to their potential. They're resistant to their potential. And so for me, the hardest part is how to connect with the folks that are the most closed to this notion that they have potential they can't see.
Yeah.
Without triggering them in such a way that they shut me out. And it's not an easy challenge. It's not an easy challenge, but I try to tell stories that aren't always, sleep in a haystack has nothing to do with the Olympics. I hardly ever tell the Olympic stories because that doesn't translate to the folks that are most close to this idea. And so for me, the hardest part is how to connect with people that need to hear this the most. Because the folks that are shut down completely are speeding towards death at a pace that is ever accelerating, and life isn't just short, it's actively getting shorter.
Yeah, you didn't talk about that part here, but John's sort of done the math. It's pseudo math, but with the perceived acceleration of time, someone my age only has like 8% of their experiential life left, because since I've seen and done so much, my brain will edit out more and more because it's not new and it's not worth recording. And so what motivates me, because John and I are close to the same age, what motivates us is that sucks, and we don't want to have, we want to have more chronologically. We maybe best case have half our chronological years left, but we want to have 80% of our experiential years left, not 8%. And that's why I'm so interested in his wall of clocks is how do I get that, right? Because then I have 200 years left to live, virtually speaking.
What I'm taking away from you is the answer to that question is the stories you tell. It's the way that you convey this to impact people, because that is the way that you breach that gap. It's something that I think about enormously as well. It's why I asked that question, is because I also have that same struggle of trying to bridge that gap, but not go so far on the offense that I completely ostracize people. Right. And I constantly cross over that barrier, and I fail to do that. And I do think it comes down to the stories you tell and the positive impact therein. I think that's a really good answer.
Thank you.
And for what it's worth, John, you have made an enormous emotional impact on me today. I will go back and I will listen to this talk and I will remember it, and I will post this on our YouTube. I think this is one of the most important talks we've had on this broadcast, and with Ethan and I, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, we've been blessed with very other very erudite guests. Virology
this kind of
experts,
takes the cake.
Yeah, but
yeah,
learning about the virus is fascinating, but it doesn't change your life. So I think you've done that for a lot of us, and it's totally true, John. I think both Devin and I were interested in the camp idea, and even willing to help with it if there's a way. It's hard to do socially. It's hard to do right now, but
yeah, once things are better, let's circle up and let's make it happen.
No,
super down.
That would be. Yeah, I had a friend who did his 40th birthday almost that way. He just told people to be at this location and get on a bus. And, it was just going to be an all-day game with crazy stuff. And at one point, like, the loser of one round of the games through the day wasn't allowed back on the bus, and had to figure, same sort of crazy adventures.
Love it.
So...
Yeah, this is huge. I think it goes without saying that you also, there's hundreds and hundreds of people watching. You made a big impact, I can tell, via chat reactions and everything, and probably the messages that come in the future. You've done a really good thing today.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
100%, man.
Well, John, I wish you incredible good fortune traveling the world, and we'll be in touch. But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Well, great to meet you guys in person-ish.
Yeah.
And hopefully in real life someday soon.
Totally.
Hope so. Yeah.
Totally. Devin, you want to hang out a little while after we let John go?
I can. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
John, thank you. I don't know if you were willing to stay another 2 hours. If you are, we have more questions, but I do want to be.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
That's good shit. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm.
All right. How about that, Devin? What do you think? What's your debrief on that?
Tier 1, man. Absolutely tier 1. Insane. That's a really, really, really crazy way to look at life. And there are so many takeaways from this that I wrote down that are like super insane.
Do you have the notepad going on your stream if I look over?
I have it on my other screen. I'm gonna post it up to Discord in a little bit because I want to like edit it a little bit, because these are just like my raw notes.
Yeah, okay.
I can give you the TLDRs. I think I I think it answered a lot of questions that people very frequently ask me, and to some extent rely on me to have the answers to. I guess the coolest thing about John is that he quantifies a lot of things that I would otherwise think are, how do I say it? Just things that we all kind of understand, but not things that we actually like actively choose to focus on or implement. And so there's a couple of things along those lines. One of the really impactful things he said was like, I was in sports realizing that milliseconds can change your life, but then I realized that real life is also like that.
Yeah, no, I saw you react to that.
Yeah,
that was big for you.
That was insane. And then the other one is something I think we understand fundamentally, but the way that he placed it, and I got his exact syntax on this, the value of incremental time is not related to its duration.
Yeah.
Right? Which basically means that you can have a life-changing event in 30 seconds, right? Something like he used the example of a car accident. There's tons of other things in the other direction, like an experience you can never forget, looking into the sunset, I'm pregnant, right? There's a million different things that you can do. So I think that was really impactful as well. The 5 things that I think he said that are the way to create and open the gate to this experience, which I did put in Notepad. And then the idea that you can also gift those moments to other people consciously. The fact that you can move all these things into consciousness is insane. And the fact that we don't in such a large percentage of our time is also fucking phenomenal.
Yeah. And what I would say about that is when you gift one of these experiences to someone else, you often get it for yourself.
Yeah.
Like even if you're not the one in the experience, seeing someone else's intense reaction to an experience usually makes a moment for you because you can like draft off their emotion. And so maybe this is interesting. That John guy is clever. Maybe by running these camps, he's just doing it, using us as a way to make moments for him too. Not that that's bad.
Yeah, he is. That dude's super smart. He's
Well, I went to Stanford and was an Olympian. Like,
yeah,
you know Venn diagrams, right? Like the overlap between the Stanford grad slash Olympic medalist is pretty fucking small. Like there's not too many people in that.
It's one of those things where I saw it when he told the Tanya Hart story. And so another big part of this that I didn't bring up was the preparation. So he's actually really, really learned in the way that he tells these stories. And a lot of the stuff that he has on doc because he's so well prepared. So like he knows to tell that story. I'm pretty sure he's practiced the points of imprint. He practices the pauses. I see it, dude. My power level scouter. It's like beep, 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 beep. Like I see what he's doing and the preparation he puts into it. So a lot of it is gamed. A lot of it is preparation, but a lot of it is also just like the which there's a lesson there too, right? But a lot of it is just the conscious impact that he has. Like I can make a difference to awaken people in real time every second. This has enormous implications for my content. It's like actually life-changing from a content creator's perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
How to pump up the impact. And,
you're creating those moments every single second or not. Yeah. It's literally the difference between like one of the reasons why we watch some of the most successful people on Twitch, like Asmongold, is because they tell such compelling stories. They tell these stories that enrapture you into the moment. Nick Merckx is like this too. There's a lot of really big Twitch broadcasters that sort of, I would say they have this innately, but I know that when you actually drill them down, which I do on my show, right? Like I really drill people down to why they become successful. They have a conscious attention to this detail.
Yeah, and I was listening to a public speaking trainer once, and he said if you've ever lost an audience, an almost guaranteed way to get them back is say, "Let me tell you a story." And the reason is we're wired to listen to stories. Like we have a storytelling based, that's where the idea of bards and oral histories came from. But he does that. If you notice, he said, "Can I share a story?" So he's well skilled in the art as well as, of course, he has good material.
Yeah, The Rock does this shit too. He'll say something like, "I'm going to tell you a story that absolutely changed my life," which is if you noticed how John opened up his story about the haystack shit, he said that. He said, "I'm going to tell you a story of where I almost died."
Yeah.
And that
of course,
intro,
everyone wants to listen to that.
Totally.
All the people who were sleeping in front of their screens woke up. They had to. Because as long as you deliver on that promise, the hook is strong.
Yeah, that dude is fucking Giga Brain. It's actually insane.
Yeah, that's and I brought to me just like when we had Dr. Rackaniello, brought to me by the community, just like your community has brought you intros to a lot of streamers I know. So
what did you take away from this? Because I kind of regard you as like a highly intelligent Giga Brain, so I wonder.
Boy, so for me, the lessons are very personal. I mean, I'm happy to share them. I'm not shy about it. I can be a little emotionally stunted, right? I'm so much an executive and an engineer that it's tough for me to access the emotional content. I tend to hold it inside. And so he's just one more motivation of like, fighting the sort of upbringing I had that emotions are sort of a defect. Like emotions are what happen when you can't control yourself. And, he would say, I think emotion is an asset, a nutritional factor, a tool. It's something you want, not something you want to hide from, or push away. And I'm really good at, there's benefits to the unemotional state. I can remain calm when shit is melting down all over. Like I can remain very, very, when I was 17, it's certainly an imprinted memory. I grew up on a farm, and I'll make this really quick. A friend of mine and I, for lack of other stuff to do, were walking and talking through a field. And because I have these things, I had given him my machete, and I was using a cavalry saber I had. And we were just hacking away at bushes for something to do. Like we were just chopping shit up as we walked through the woods because it's Ohio and there's not much else there. But at some point, I got to a tree and I hit it with my cavalry saber and I didn't cut through the branch. And I'm like, that's because the branch was springy and bounced. So I reached up and grabbed the branch and I went for another cut and I got my thumb.
Oh.
And I knew I got my thumb. And so I went like this. And I know some part of my thumb is missing, but I'm not really willing to look. And I turned to my friend who hadn't seen it happen, and I said, I just cut off part of my thumb. I'm going to go to the hospital. I need you to find it and bring it to the hospital. And we're like out in a field, so it's somewhere in the grass. And he, go find my thumb in the grass. But the point is, I remained totally calm. And then I went back to the house, and I went into the house, and I said to my dad, hey, Dad, great opening line, by the way. I'm sure it's a memory for him. Hey, Dad, I need you to drive me to the hospital. And, of course, he's like, blah, blah, what did you do? I always told you, you fool. And he comes running at me, ready to rage at me. And I said very calmly, I said, Dad, you can yell at me later. Right now, I need you to drive me to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like pouring a bucket of water over him. Like he was in full-blown, like, lecture the dumb kid, and it was just like, it was off because I was able to cut through that. So the unemotional state has advantage, but to actually make that a memory, I had to cut off part of my thumb first, which was certainly emotional.
Yeah. I have exactly what you're saying. It's like, it's a gift. It's like he said, though, every strength has a weakness within it and vice versa. Like I have a very similar story because I think you and I are a lot alike. I decided that the smart thing to do, I used to run all the time at night, and I never do this anymore because when I was running one night in Lake Tahoe, I was running through the woods and I hit a train, tripped over it. And I didn't feel a lot of pain, but I knew it was really bad. So I was like, okay, at first I tried to run, my leg wouldn't let me. And I was like, something's up. So I started walking home and I had a bit of a limp. And then a car passed by, and in the car light, I saw there was a hole about like this big in my ankle. And I was like, I'm fucked. I'm totally fucked. And so I like walk home, like hopping on one foot. And I come into the door. I told my girlfriend at the time, I'm like, hey, we need to go to the hospital. Just like that, right? And she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, hold on. I got to call my dad. I call my dad and I'm like, hey, man, do you think I should go to the emergency room? And he's like, well, what's up? And I'm like, well, there's a hole in my ankle about 2 inches in diameter. And he's like, should go to the fucking hospital. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so like they call, there's a name in Tahoe for people that do things at night that injure themselves that comes from Burning Man, because we're right next door to Burning Man. They're called darkwads, like dorkwads, because they're people that run around in the dark and fall into things like I did. So I ended up being really lucky. I still have the scar, actually. It's like right here. And it ended up that there's not that much going on in my ankle. So I actually healed up pretty quick, but holy shit. Like I was like really chill about it. I was just like, yeah, all right, cool. Like battlefield general, man. Like I thrive in like chaotic situations. Like what's shit going down? Like, let's go. And, but it costs you because like you can lose that emotional impact on moments, or also it costs you in personal relationships because I'll have someone else is like freaking out. I'll just be like, I'll be trying to like logic through it when what they really need is emotional support.
Yep.
This has cost me endless amounts of suffering in my relationships. Because I fucked this up so
well,
bad.
and that you're right, John. You and I do seem to be the same that way. And John's point is that you said it earlier. Every strength has a weakness. So the ability to stay calm when shit's going south. Because I have other examples of like, oh yeah, that was going really badly, but I'm just processing. Like we talk, Jocko Willink in his book, right? Like prioritize, figure out the highest level, most immediate threat, and focus on that.
Yeah,
I can do that. Not that I have 5% of Jocko's experiences either, but I can be like, yes, there are hand grenades in the room, but they have a 4-second fuse, and the guy with the gun, I have half a second. So
he tells that story of the alleyway when he just like when like the SEALs just engage those dudes. And like sometimes I wonder because like, have you ever seen a person at like a Walmart and they're like trying to return something for $30 and they're like, I can't fucking believe this place. This is such bullshit. You guys are fucked up. I'm never shopping here again. I'm like, I could never do that. I logic through it and I'm like, that guy is literally making $12 an hour, probably hates his life. And like, why would I ever do that to that person? Right. But this person's just in the moment. They're just totally invested. They're all in, dude. like I had a friend that did that. He tried to return Warcraft 3 at a fucking Walmart. And he was like yelling at the guy because it was like, or he was trying to price match Warcraft 3, I think on Amazon, which is even worse, right? Like it's even worse is like, that's what was happening. He was trying to buy a Warcraft 3 battle chest on Amazon. It costs like $20. Walmart, it costs like $40. He's yelling at the cashier. The cashier finally looks him right in the eyes and is like, we don't do this here, man. It's so depressed that it just finally shuts him up. But holy shit, like I can't be in that moment like that, I can't evoke that.
But I need to find better ways, to tap into the positive. And so I'm working on that. That's like, and to the point that John made about what you can and can't change, I can change that stuff. Like that's a skill to learn to be more open to emotion. I'll never be, in hindsight, I wish I'd ask him a little more to clarify what's a learnable skill or an improvable skill versus what's not. For him, it was heavily rooted in the physical in part. He was just not an aerobic athlete.
I think at first, but I think he learned the emotional stuff later.
Yeah.
I think he started physical and learned emotional adult life.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he also had the point, he kept making the point if you were listening, because he had, this is another place where the guy was gifted. He had one of the greatest design teachers. Like the guy who was his advisor at Stanford invented the concept of design thinking, or which is just huge. The point is, though, I lost the point. It was
incredibly gifted.
He is gifted, but I think he kept making the point, if you're creative, you're probably disorganized, because those traits often do go together, right? Like the artist is hardly known for their like filing system or those are just different. So, Okay.
For sure.
Well, cool. I'm going to call it a night, I think. But
I'm going to play EVE Online.
So you're going to call it a different kind of night.
Yeah.
So for everybody who's here, for both of us, thank you so much. I hope you got a ton out of that. Devin and I are both going to rewatch it. If we do get a
100%.
chance to go to one of John's camps or help him pull one off, we will absolutely do it. And hopefully, I'm now going to live 100 years of life in the next 5. So,
Dude, I'm so glad you wrote me into that, man. That was like one of the best talks we've had.
yeah,
Hopefully I provided value too.
completely. Actually, you drove a lot of it. You drove a lot of great questions. I think you did a great.
I had no idea who the guy was. I came in and I was like, well, this is an Olympic dude. Here we go. Yeah. And like one of the guys in the community, the awesome guy, his
Yeah.
name's literally awesome. He's also like it's literally
he's
awesome.
here right
something.
now in my chat.
Yeah.
Awesome Patel. And
Also, yeah. He made this like whole like fucking thing that you read that was like this really useful like bio, and I was like, I was gonna show up and be like, oh, what's up, bros? What's broing down? And then like I think I came in as like an idiot, and then I said that, and like he was like, I might have made a mistake, and then like I busted out some neuroscience memes, and he was like, okay, we're on board.
yeah, no.
Hopefully he enjoyed it.
I think he did. We'll find out. Awesome knows him clearly fairly well. And yeah, for everybody in chat, Awesome's legal name is actually Awesome. It's not just a handle. So gift from
Are you
his parents.
serious?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
That's
very
very
his legal
cool.
name. And he does for me a little bit what Hake does for you, like research and prep and what do you call, it's not the lab anymore, but like what do you call your research room?
It's still the lab. It's just the lab research.
Yeah.
I just
So-
went ham and like detonated it, and now we're rebuilding it from the ground up.
Awesome is my like my one man lab, but he carries a broad shoulders and does a great job. So
Michelle.
I
Yeah.
totally appreciate him. Let's see.
Good.
Um,
Okay.
all
So
right.
you're gonna go back to riding bears and shit. I'm gonna go fly some spaceships. We'll meet up soon.
All right, sounds good. Well,
right,
you and
my man.
I gotta drag you out of your cave
Yes.
again soon, but I
Kicking
will
and screaming. Okay.
because we have to try this, like creating more moments, right?
We do. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I'm down.
All right, man.
All right,
I'll
brother.
catch you later.
Okay, man. Love you,
Bye.
man.
Yeah,
Bye.
love you too. Here we go. All right, Devin's gone. That was awesome. Overused. No pun intended, but it ended up that way. So real quick, couple things. So if you don't know this guy that we always talk about, Csikszentmihalyi, you don't have to read his book, but read about him a little bit. The flow state. It's so powerful. And I see Ed, you're asking about a trade talk, and the mods are talking about it. I'll add it to my topic list. It would be neat to do a talk there. And I think it's I've recently had some pressure on it. So anyway, some pressure in the sense that I do agree with what Mike Rose says and some others, that we overemphasize college education as like the only path, and people rack up all this debt. So. But yeah, Ed, if you want to reach out, like, I don't know if you're in our Discord or if you use Discord, or if you want a private message, 40PD, a way to contact you or something, we'd be happy. You've asked about this a couple times, and I love it when community members help create interesting topics. So yeah, just direct message me there, and we'll talk about what your vision is and how to do it. Because, Awesome brought John out of nowhere. And he's amazing, right? And I learned so much. And he's also a gifted public speaker, which is something else we didn't talk about here, but I'm also super interested in is, I'm a public speaker and I'm pretty good at it, not only from Twitch channel, but other audiences I've addressed. But John's a level up. If you haven't seen his TED Talk, like, TED Talks are hard, and he does a really good job with it. So can we have an episode on public speaking and how content creators can use it? Yes. I've done some other talks on public speaking. There is a difference between being a content creator, like alone in front of a mic, and being a content creator in front of a room. Ironically, a good friend of mine, some of you know him, David, who's one of our moderators and here in chat sometimes, he built a studio where I can have a live audience. He built it in his basement. And the tragedy is he's finishing it right now in COVID when I can't have a live audience, because I'm actually I think while I love speaking on Twitch and I've totally adapted to the medium, I'm a more powerful speaker in front of a live audience with the human interaction. And so I would love to be doing streams with a live audience. And we had that all set up and ready to roll, and we can't quite execute on it, thanks to COVID-19, but hopefully by 21, COVID-19 will be in the rearview mirror. So, and no, of course, Awesome, you're completely welcome in the live audience. So the other thing I want to show is I owe it to John to show his book. So he's working on another book on the time stuff. This is about finding your strengths and designing around them. So if you have a strength, how do you build off that strength? You can see there's this concept called design thinking, which is what he learned at Stanford. And then here in this part, it's your strengths. And he's saying breakthrough performance comes in the middle. So I need to get this book. I just have so many books I need to get to. But I will get to this one because I'm super impressed with John, and I owe it to him just to buy his book. So anyway, I wanted to show that. So we'll be back next week. I'm still debating the topic. Maybe if Ed reaches out quickly, we'll do that next week. Otherwise, we'll do something else. But I will be back with some great topic, maybe the one of the other ones Awesome has helped me prepare. And we'll do some resumes and LinkedIn reviews because we haven't done those recently. And that'll be next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. So a week from now, 6 p.m. Pacific. And with that, we've been going 2 hours, which is longer than we usually go. You all have been great. Thank you all for being here and for your support. And I hope you have a wonderful night. With that, cheers. We're out.